Hey everyone, it's Sonic Death Monkey. I mean, the Last Nighters, and we review movies on this show here, which is unassailably cool, I might add. We're going to be talking about High Fidelity tonight with a special guest, and this is episode, let's see here, 110 of the show, and my co-host is Robert Johnson. He
What's
is
up?
at Trubster.com. That's his website where you can find some of the wares that he develops. Some of the top 5 ways you can support the show: buy something from Trubster.com, subscribe to us on YouTube, give us a review. We've been getting reviews lately. This is really good news. We've gotten 2 in the past week. It must have been that, how you say, our Groundhog Day episode with Jack V. Lloyd got a lot of traction. A lot of people out there hearing the stuff that we have to say, the nonsense that we spew. And we got a couple of reviews out of it. So that's really good news.
Something we're doing is working.
Something we're doing is working. And I think one of our other things that's working is the guests that we have. And we have one of our top 5 guests about to join us here in just a moment. He is Nicky P of Sound Freqs, formerly known as Sounds Like Liberty. Not quite into the Kathleen Turner Overdrive name of your group now, but it's Peace Freqs. Nick, welcome back to the show. You've been our guest several times. We talked about Chernobyl, related to your Free Markets Green Earth podcast. We had you on for Dark City. Was there something else? I'm kind of drawing a blank, but you've been on at least twice.
I feel like there was another one, but I'm not entirely sure when it would have been. I always have fun when I'm on. You guys are good people to talk to, and I like talking about movies. I've watched probably far too many of them in my days.
Well, welcome back. However many times it's been, I will put it on our show notes page, lastnight.com/110. And we'll also put a link to your wares, what you got. So nickpacone.com is like the granddaddy of websites that links out to your other shows, right? So why don't you just reintroduce yourself to the audience and then give us a list of all the projects you work on.
Oh, good Lord. All right. Well, I'm Nicky P. I started out, I guess, in the libertarian podcasting realm with Sounds Like Liberty, which was originally a music and libertarian thought podcast. Basically, I just talked to libertarians about their music. We've kind of expanded out and had some interesting things happen in the Twitterverse recently that have made me want to, I guess, kind of de-libertarianize myself. And I guess I'm still consider myself a libertarian, but I think the the name kind of carries with it some baggage, like people that think they're libertarians and want to bomb Iran. That was a little frustrating to deal with. But I also, from there kind of branched out. I now host a podcast about libertarian podcasts, and I host a podcast about free market environmentalism, kind of the ways that we can look at the environment from a free market perspective that give us the upper hand against, say, the leftist authoritarian regimes. If you can also find the Freedom Song 365 project, which is me and my friends Luke Tatum and Sherry Voluntary did libertarian writing about songs with libertarian themes every day for a year. I think you can also link to my podcast on teaching parents how to become podcasters called Parent to Podcaster. So I may be forgetting stuff. Just go to nickpacone.com and it'll kind of fill in the blanks. Occasionally you see pictures of this little creature dancing next to me.
All right, very cool. So nickpacone.com and Parent to Podcaster. I think you've got a special interview with yours truly coming out very shortly, so we'll have a link to that on our show notes page as well. So welcome back, Nick. It's you're one of the hardest working men in the libertarian sphere, even though you're trying to get out of that orbit a little bit.
One of these things is going to take off someday, right?
That's the rumor.
One of these irons in the fire is going to get hot.
Well, yeah. So speaking of getting hot, let's get into the Google description. Now we kick this thing off. We're, of course, talking about High Fidelity. It's a John Cusack movie based on a Nick Hornby novel story book. Came out in the year 2000, so it came out in the future, or, what was known as the future back when I was growing up. Like 2000 was the big, fanciful Jetsons era type date to throw out there. the Y2K and everything. Drama comedy film, 1 hour, 54 minutes. It is now owned by Disney and is not available on any platform without paying $10 or more, unless you bootleg it off YouTube like Robert and I did. Came out 2000, like I said. Rated R, 7.5 IMDb, 91% Rotten Tomatoes, 79% Metacritic, and 85% of Google users liked it. The description is Rob Gordon, played by John Cusack, is the owner of a failing record store in Chicago where he sells music the old-fashioned way, on vinyl. Although they have an encyclopedic knowledge of pop music and are consumed by the music scene, it's of no help to Rob, whose needle skips the love groove when his longtime girlfriend Laura, played by Eben Hedgele, walks out on him. As he examines his failed attempts at romance and happiness, the process finds him being dragged, kicking and screaming, into adulthood. Director Stephen Frears, box office $47.1 million. Robert, I'll go to you for your take on this.
What take?
You got to have something.
What do you want me to say about this movie, Daniel? It was a movie. I watched it. People did stuff on the screen. They were talking. I kind of laughed a few times. There was sort of a plot. It was about a guy who is kind of like this, woe is me, all these breakups I've had with all these girls, kind of just analyzing his life, his love history, when, you know, it's all spurred on by his latest girlfriend who dumps him and walks out. But then ultimately he realizes that this is the girl that he's wanted all along, because other girls are just drama. Or not drama. They're fantasies. And he wants something real, and he's just tired, and he's just old and broken down, and he's settling. That's the end of the movie. He's like, I'm going to settle. The end. Great movie, Daniel. This is super good.
Well,
God, that's what you get out of that movie?
Robert, that's what it is. That's that movie is.
We can't even be friends anymore. Good Lord.
All right, this is going to be spicy, everyone.
Oh, it's going to be contentious.
And Nick are going to disagree.
Coming off.
I'm going to be in the middle. I'm going to be a little go-between here, try to mediate this situation. But Nick, your take on the description and Robert's opening terrible remarks.
Let's just say this is accurate remarks. This is a better way to get across Jordan Peterson's 12 rules for life. Like, he should have just gave people this movie and then not wrote that boring ass book that anyone who went to a Catholic church knows every part of. The idea, I guess you can call it settling, in that he realizes the things that actually have value in his life and chooses those over things that he was told had value in his life. To me, it's one of the few movies that has a character actually develop and realize that he's the problem, as opposed to blaming everything on everyone else. That's usually the conclusion, is that, oh, well, you know, we don't have to deal with our emotional problems, when the whole thing is he's just acting like a child and he has to grow up. That's it. And he doesn't give up so much as realize that, well, the reason I'm in this relationship now is because I value these things and not the things I thought I did.
I do see this as a maturation process as well. And that's kind of the whole impetus behind the breakup between him and Laura, is that they got together in this, club scene or whatever. He was a DJ and she was a pink-haired law student. And then she had to grow up and, she had a job and she started making adult money, and she couldn't keep doing the kid things. Like, what was it? It's like a Bible verse, I think, where, when I was a child, I did childish things. And then when I became an adult, I put away those childish things. And I think that there's a transition period, and we kind of see that here. She left because Rob was still the same person he was when she met him, and she had matured and he had not.
Now, full disclosure to my position on this, I have actually read the book, which is far better and fairly different in some respects. I also have probably over 100 John Cusack DVDs upstairs, where I've been collecting John Cusack DVDs since the moment I saw this movie.
Stalker.
Very much so. And then at a certain point, his politics became so crazy, I can't even bring myself to watch any of them anymore.
All right. So Nick, top 5 things you love about John Cusack. Go.
All right. War Inc. was a fantastic movie. for me, it would just be movies. I really never cared too much about him as a person. He did good content. High Fidelity was one of them. Gross Point Blank, War Inc. If we want to take it back, we could take it back to, say, like 16 Candles. And probably one of the best ones of all time is Better Off Dead.
I'll agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. That's one where he's a kickboxer. He doesn't want to sell anything that's been bought or sold or made or manufactured or mined. He just wants to marry your daughter.
and perhaps he is what kept me a man-child far longer than I should have in my own life, because I think I looked at him the same way Robert did. But then I realized the greater story in all of this is that eventually he grew up and started making crappy movies.
He is one of those guys that doesn't seem to age. Like, he was doing movies in the 80s and he's still doing movies now. And yeah, he looks a little different, but I mean, goodness,
he's a little paunchier, you know. But we owe him Jeremy Piven, by the way. So,
what's the connection there with Piven? Is that from Grosse Point Blank?
Jeremy Piven actually came up in like a theater company his family ran.
Oh, okay.
Like that's why you notice his sister Joan is very famous also. Mm-hmm. They're big time in like the Chicago theater community, and that's where Piven came out of.
Yeah, a lot of his movies are based in Chicago. I remember Joan Cusack was the voice of the narrator for Peep and the Big Wide World, which my kids enjoyed when they were a little bit younger.
My daughter still enjoys that occasionally. You like Peep, right? Apparently not. She's forgotten all about it.
Peep,
well, somebody actually brought this up because his sister was in one of my favorite movies of all time, which was the movie Toys, starring Robin Williams, which gets far more prescient every day as the government is now actually talking about putting out its own drone video game for people to play, which was the entire premise of that movie. But they've both done very, very interesting roles, from the time that they were young and moving on. So it's fascinating to me. But we're here to talk about this fantastic movie.
We are, and I just want to point out that I'm wearing a Cosby sweater. It's the only sweater I've got, actually, so it's not even a Cosby sweater, but it is a lead to my favorite character in this film, and that is that of Jack Black, who is just over the top, 100 miles an hour the whole time, and he's a tour de force. He steals the show in every scene that he's in.
This is definitely his breakout movie too. Like he solidified who Jack Black was, because he'd had a few roles before this, but none of them really catered to what he offered. In particular, if you remember the movie The Jackal, he played a pretty boring character in that. Although it is funny that he gets his head shot off or whatever it is there by Bruce Willis. And then if you remember, I think it was I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. He played some hippie that got killed with a bong. Very, very small roles. And this is the first one where like he was a guy that you actually genuinely remembered him being there. And more importantly, you remember him being Jack Black. Because, if you look at like what was it? The Tenacious D TV show, that was very much who this guy was. And I think at this point they said, go out and be you. And he did. And people just are drawn to whatever he is.
Right. And I think this leads into his School of Rock appearance. And he's basically the same guy.
Which, by the way, brings it back to Joan Cusack. So it's surprising what those Cusacks are into throughout time, which is everything. So, Robert, I know you're going to ask me, like, when did this become a fascist regime? But I'm kind of...
No, it was a long time ago.
Get your input on this.
So I don't really have a whole lot to add. You guys seem to know this movie inside and out way better than I do.
For the joke is I haven't watched it in years. I can still probably quote most of the movie verbatim. I watched it way too much in college.
It does have quite a few quotes. It's not like the Billy Madison or Lebowski quotable, but there's a bunch of stuff in here that's kind of worthy of remembrance, I would think.
Is there?
Well, no. I think Hornby just wrote good characters, and there is still a lot of Hornby's character in this guy. I don't know if you've ever read anything else by Nick Hornby, but he's just very good at capturing a certain person, and like you feel what they feel. And that's the key to Rob, is that perhaps we were never, like, our co-host here was never in the position to be a Rob, but I was definitely a Rob in college. And so those feelings that he has, I know them very well because I've lived them. Where you're looking at back, like, what's so broken about me that nobody finds me worthwhile? And if you go through a string of relationships, it's something that eventually you're going to come to. Like, it forces you to deal with the fact that the only common denominator between any of these very disparate people is you. And you have to choose whether or not to continue being that person or to make the things change that need changed so that you can move on and not have those same, not have that same shit happen to you.
Right. And one of the things that he changes is his perspective on those other people and how important they were or how great they are or aren't, because he'd been broken up with by these 5 women, his top 5 that he opens with, he feels like they're up on a pedestal of sorts. And then it's only when he re-engages with them, well, one, he finds that he actually broke up with her, so he can write that off. And then another, he's like, oh, she married the next guy. So that was destiny. That was fate. So I don't have to worry about that one either. So like all these little things kind of in a childish way help him to recover his self-esteem as a result of this. But it also changes his perspective on these people, especially when he re-engages with Charlie, the Catherine Zeta-Jones character.
It's fucking awful.
Yeah, she is so vapid and so like spouting off just nonsense. But it also is the type of rhetoric that if you don't really listen to what she's saying, it sounds important and special and unique and like interesting.
Well, she sounds like every idealistic commie I've ever held a conversation with. Like, she's just that. Like, put that into a... Don't get me wrong. Some of those blue hairs are hot. Like, I would do evil things to them. But in the end of the day, I can't stand to listen to that talk. That incessant, you don't know what you're talking about, and you're acting like you're an expert. Right. Yeah.
In watching this again recently, she reminded me of how captivating it can be to listen to someone like Peter Joseph when those Zeitgeist movies came out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I found his delivery mesmerizing. It's like you wanted to listen to him, but then you realized he said a whole bunch of $10 words, but he didn't ever get to a point. That really meant anything.
I had a buddy in college who had like a half brother that like I just invite over to come and like tell me stories about like just different shit that had happened in his life, and I just pass out because I just loved listening to this fucking dude tell stories. There was something about like you just wanted to listen to him, and like you just so entranced by it. The last time I remember seeing him was where he was wearing a communist flag, running around in just a communist flag through campus. And yeah, I don't know why that I would let that person in my house, let alone listen to them talk. But there was something about it. It's just that I don't know if it's a charm thing or just the quality of voice. Some people have something that you just want to listen to.
Yet.
Trubs over here knows.
I do know.
He knows Hitler.
Well, no, the Rob character, if anything, strikes me like you're talking about like this child, like a man child. Like he has these little. He reminded me of George Costanza in how he's like very particular and he has these little quirks and just that he's not grown up in any sense of the word. So, yeah, I identified in that sense with Cusack's character, and I did appreciate that there was growth. I didn't understand the growth. Like it's like some sort of self-realization but I didn't really understand why. I mean, him meeting his old exes is what spurs on the self-realization.
Well,
I guess.
Do you know anything about the Jahari window?
I don't know what you're talking about, Nick, so you're just gonna have to enlighten me.
Oh God. Okay, so the Jahari window, it's a pretty common thing. It's the idea that there's 4 quadrants of knowledge. There's the parts of yourself that you know and everyone else knows. There's the parts of yourself that everyone else knows and you don't know. There's the parts of yourself that you know nobody else knows, and then there's the parts of yourself that nobody knows. And I think a lot of achieving in life is just understanding and coming to grips with pieces that you don't necessarily know and finding as many of them as you can to understand who you are. And through the course of finding out about all these women and what happened in their lives, he's forced into a position where he has to come to grips and say, well, the common denominator between all these is X. And what does that leave other than I'm a problem? Well, how do I deal with that? How do I cope with that? So I'm either left to change and deal with it, or, you know, continue living a lie and be unhappy from relationship to relationship, doing the same things I've always done.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it goes back to that whole perspective thing. Like, he starts to realize that how he was even viewing the relationship with Laura was he was looking for this fire, right? This like intense roller coaster. But then when he was reflecting on it after losing her, he liked that it was steady. Like, there weren't super highs, there weren't super lows. It was just good and comfortable, and like her smell and whatever. So he was willing to, I guess, no longer have one foot out the door and cherish what he actually had versus always keeping an eye out for something better or something more exciting or something like that.
Well, he was taking stock of the fact that stability and reliability are something that has value to him. You know, hot girls are pretty valuable in one way, like cool girls are valuable in other ways. But there's certain things that don't have value to you until you reach a certain point in life. And he just reached the point in life and realized that finally that these things that I didn't put any value in before, I now do. And I just didn't know I did.
Right. It took him a while to figure it out. And I also want to say that he was a bit of a pussy and a bit of a hypocrite.
Oh, without question. He is a flawed character. Like, but he also got to, you know, bang Lenny Kravitz's wife, so that's cool.
Yeah, Marie DeSalle, is that her name in the show here?
Is it number 8 with a smile? I believe it was the number 8 with a smile. I believe it's implied.
Bullshit. How can it be wrong to state a preference?
Can it be wrong to state a preference? Exactly.
But yeah, so that was his hypocriticalness, was that he was all broken up because Laura was with this Ian guy. I hate him too.
Good.
But even before they had slept together, you know, she said that they hadn't. Then he goes out and sleeps with Marie DeSalle right away. And then once he does discover that she does sleep with Ray, then he's all busted up over it. But if she knew that he did that thing, wouldn't she be pissed? It's really bizarre, this situation where he goes out and does the thing that he would be very upset with her doing.
We were talking about his flaws, and I keep running the scene. Charlie, you fucking bitch. Let's work it out. He screams through the window, and you're just like, that is not the appropriate way to handle your emotions.
No, yeah, that's a very childlike way of handling it. And he was still doing that stuff even with Laura. Like, as soon as he figured out where Ian lived, he would go outside of his apartment and call on the payphone, and like basically stalk them like you stalk Cusack with the DVDs. And what I don't understand is, you know, I don't mean to jump all the way to the end already, but when Laura has her turn back towards him, it's after he does all this crazy stalker shit. And her dad dies, and she's like emotionally vulnerable and just wants, I guess, to fill that void with something else. And so then, you know, she goes back to him just for, you know, physical needs or whatever. But it's not a satisfying like reuniting of them on a emotional like relationship level for me. It seems kind of it rings a little hollow, you know.
Well, and see, and that's the thing. I would be willing to side with Rob and say that yes, she totally fucking settled. Like she probably made some stupid decisions in staying with him based on his reactions to things. But maybe that's just making her a good person, you know. But she sat down and she weighed the values that she had in her life, and you know, the stability of, you know, I guess routine sex was important enough for her to stay with a guy who's maybe he was cute and that was what she valued. He had other things that he learned that he valued in her aside from those qualities. You know, I think he wants her for better reasons than she wants him, perhaps.
Yeah, like he had a realization that he has to punch his weight, but even with her, he's not.
Yeah, really. He's a guy who I guess he owns a record store, and then he goes and tries to. In this, I will give him credit in this. He goes and tries to be good at a business that is even worse to try and be good at than being a record store owner, which is a music producer. I don't know a lot of famous music producers. Most of the shit you listen to on the radio is by 3 Swedish guys, so it's a little odd that he would choose that route and be a viable option, but he did apparently.
Yeah, so Nick, I wanted to ask you because this is a movie that you wanted to do, and as we were IMing about it, you said that there was economics in this. So, what are the? I'm going to say top 5, but you know, however many. What are the economic things you see in this?
Well, what's interesting is a couple things. First off, the entire movie focuses on a guy running a business, so he's constantly dealing with situations like, does he keep these guys around because they're his friends? Does he keep these guys around because they're good employees? We can see where he has to come to grips with what the business is to him and why he does it, which I think is also why he chooses to, you know, get back into the DJing thing and why he chooses to produce that band, because I think he starts to see the record store as more of a business, and he knows he needs fulfillment musically in other places because he's not going to get it there. It also could be that he realizes he has a bunch of shitty employees and that he needs to hire perhaps more shitty employees. But I also find it amusing. One of the things that I was thinking of when I actually said that was, you look at, in particular, Jack Black's character, who is out there and he's talking a big game about the art and the creative process, and let them riot. We're Sonic fucking Death Monkey. But then he completely turns on that for this party, you know. He's doing the freaking Rob out the whole time, going, you know, you and your bougie friends can deal with this. We're gonna let them fucking riot, I think is what he says specifically. And then he shows up and then the night and he makes a joke, and then he provides exactly what he was hired to do, which is entertainment. And he goes in there competently understanding what his audience is and giving them what they want, despite that's not what he would do. And there's just little moments of seeing people make savvy decisions like that I really appreciated. And while they'll talk a big game about how important the art is to what they do, they also realize that art is and frankly has always been a commercial endeavor. People that do it for any length of time, they're going to make money on it, or they won't do it very long. So that's kind of what I was getting at with it. I really appreciated that. There's also the fact that, I mean, you're dealing with a guy who has to deal with the reality of, like, what does he offer of value to a woman if he doesn't have his shit in order and doesn't make money and he's got a failing business? He doesn't offer anything. So was there any, you notice any little things like that, or not, you not pay attention to it?
Well, I was thinking that you were going to go with he's running a record store in a gentrified neighborhood where people don't go to window shop. So the rent's cheap, but probably not a lot of foot traffic, though they do show the store busy pretty often. But he said it's, you know, people who need to make a special trip to go down there, like with a specific purpose. It's usually young men who are like lonely or heartbroken or whatever. As he opens, you know, what came first, the music or the misery? And then there's also...
That actually factors a lot more into the book, because if you read the book, he actually isn't even selling, like, he's not into pop music, like that whole, which came first, the pop music or the misery, that whole deal. He's actually selling like very niche blues music in the book that they like, and that's what he's obsessed with. And so he would have a much more niche shop, but I don't think you could sell that to an American audience. But it is one of the reasons I think that Springsteen makes that appearance that he makes in there, because that is kind of an homage to the whole blues, like roots rock, like history of that book.
Okay.
But what is also is funny is that this movie was acting as if records were something that was never going to come back, And here we are. CDs are kind of passe, and records are big money. They've actually sold more. We've had solid gains in the record industry for the past 5 years now. They continue to make more and more money.
Yeah, I mean, 20 years will change quite a bit. I mean, the CDs were kind of the newfangled thing back when this came out, and records were going away. But now, I guess the tone is different. There's a scratchiness and a warmth.
Well, no, the
really
thing is with vinyl, it's a very tangible thing, and that's why people still bought CDs. That's why I still buy CDs. I don't have room for records, so I'll buy the CDs and get like the liner notes. And there's an experience to getting a new record, and that a true like lover of music and aficionado will have. Like, God, you crack it open, you open the liner notes, you're looking through the lyrics, you're seeing this full spectrum thing that the artist wanted you to see, and you really don't get a feel of that like you do with a record. Like opening that record and the sleeve is this big, beautiful artwork. It's something special about that. And the bottom line is that you're going to listen to it on a fucking iPhone one way or the other. So you're not listening to it on a CD. You may never, like a lot of people own records. They may never listen to those records. They go up on a thing on the wall and they can kind of look through them like they have a library, but almost every record you buy, you get the download code like sent to you from the company that you bought it through immediately. So like if I go and buy a record on Amazon, they'll send me the download code to download it immediately to my device. And then I've got the record for later consumption. It's just there. It's more the idea. You
never actually go and do it? It's just
What's that?
Nice to have, but you never actually like take advantage of it?
I right now I don't even have a record player. I've given it to one of my friends, but I have a couple records sitting over there that I've picked up. A lot of times it's just a way to support the artist. Like you like having a tangible thing. Like I can't justify music that doesn't have a tangible side of it. As an anti-IP person, I will never justify sending people money for just fucking nothing. Like, what are you giving me? Like, I need something to fucking hold, or this is nothing. So I always have to have the CD, but, that's just the way I choose to consume it. And I think that the record industry is still a very niche thing, but they found their audience and they've managed to cultivate that audience, and they still manage to make money on it. Whereas CDs continue to lose money, records are actually making more money than they have been. So it's very interesting to see the way that the perception of an industry was, and that no one could have predicted that short of like maybe an incredible insider.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to offend your golf buddy here and ask Robert his particular takes on the economics of this. There were a couple of instances where a customer came into the shop and were denied service. 2 different occasions that I can recall. And
I just called to say I love you.
Yeah, that one. And then the really like kind of fresh fish guy that Jack Black was like trying to like help him, get his collection going. And then he wanted this particular record. And he was like, no, I'm not selling it today. I don't feel like selling it today. And then as soon as that guy walks away, then one of their other buddies, Lewis, I think is his name, like, I'll give you 50 for it. And he's like, sold. I'm like, why would you sell it to me and not that guy? And it's like, because you're not a nerd. So Robert, do you see that as like, we're big proponents of, the market will punish bad behavior and reward good behavior, especially when it comes, like the whole, when it comes to like racial questions of, people having biases and whether there should be like civil rights laws or accommodation laws, like forcing people to serve other people when it's in their economic interest to do so. But we see an example of this in this movie where even though it's not the economic interest of the people, it's still in their interest psychically to do what they did to those customers. You get what I'm saying? So it's not just economic interest that's going to be at play here.
Well, yeah, they're elitist fucks, right? And I think they get called that in the film, right? They're not good economic actors. I mean, Cusack
think they know better than everyone. Yeah.
Don't they?
Cusack puts the place in like this out of the way dump of a location, and I think the only people that can get away with that are people that have like a monopolies on a certain set of service or what is that tangible, like an intangible,
like a competitive advantage, like you can't
like,
get it anywhere else.
You can't get this anywhere else, and this is like the new hot spot. Like, you know, nightclubs can get away with that sort of thing. Exclusivity, exactly. Or like high-end restaurants can turn away customers if they don't meet some certain standard or whatever, because you can't get this food anywhere else. You can't get this experience anywhere else.
Well, and I don't know if you've ever searched for an import. It's a lot easier than it used to be. But I know some people like in the early 90s, like you'd have to really, really hunt to find certain CDs. Like my favorite version of Body Movin' by the Beastie Boys is actually a Japanese import B-side recorded or remixed by Fatboy Slim. It was only on this one import that you'd have to hunt down to find. See, unless you had a niche store that was buying like very specific content to get you all of those extra things that weren't even like sold here in the States, you wouldn't find it. So he could sit there and hold that record and nobody else has it.
So so he had a virtual monopoly in this town of his, for sure. Whereas these days you could just go online and pick it up, no problem.
I mean, some things are still hard to find. Like look for a copy of the film Necronomicon online somewhere and tell me how much you have to pay for it to find it. And it's going to be a VHS copy. It's a pretty terrible movie also.
Indeed. Well, all right.
But I did also want to point out real quick. So that guy who says, what, you'll sell it to me, but not to him. That guy his name is Alex. And he is one of the main guys in the movie, or in the main guys in the band Hepcat. You might also recognize him from the movie Swingers.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He's the one. Basically, his job is just to play cool hipster black dude in movies of that era. He did it well.
He's also niche.
Cornered that
very
market.
niche.
Good.
There's and I will say that if you haven't noticed a recurring theme looking at John Cusack movies, and I think that either he takes very big pride in it, or he has say in the matter himself directly. He's very into the music. All of his movies, especially of that era, have very, very good soundtracks. They're very well constructed, and he has a lot of like. Have you ever seen the movie Tapeheads?
Can't say as I have.
It's a great movie. It's insane. But one of its claim to fame is that there's a country band that plays in the bar that him and Tim Robbins hang out at. And the country band is Fishbone, which is a 90s like ska
punk metal band, right?
Yeah, but they play a country band in the movie. So I think he takes a lot of the music very seriously for his films.
And wasn't there some Easter egg kind of like nods to other movies of the era? Like, wasn't one of the band posters that we see early on in the film actually the band from, I want to say, Singles?
I would almost guarantee it. Like, there's a lot of conscious decision making that goes into that. I mean, even if you look at that movie I was talking about earlier, War Inc., like there's a lot of music that kind of is part of the storyline, even in that movie. Same thing with like Grosse Pointe Blank. Like so much of that movie is based around song lyrics and things like that.
Right. And so, Robert, this is why I kind of figured that you would have more of a liking to this movie, because you were a music guy, especially of this era, maybe a little bit before this era. But they were going, Echo and the Bunnymen. They were Beta Band. That will now sell 3 albums of the Beta Band. And he just starts playing it, and everyone's like nodding along. But yeah, like Nick's saying, the music is a pretty big central part of this film, and I thought that would really call out to you.
Well, I did appreciate that he was playing a Chemical Brothers song when he was spinning in the club when he first meets his girlfriend / fiance that he proposes to at the end when she turns him down. That's fun.
Half says, well, what do you think you might if you did, and blah blah blah.
It's pretty romantic proposal. It's important that you asked. It's important that I asked.
Yeah, exactly.
But did that angle like call out to you at all? The music being such a big part of this, and like a lot of the bands that I'm sure you were familiar with back in the day, being referenced?
I mean, some of them. I'm not as much of an indie music nerd as I guess a lot of people on this podcast are. I remember belonging to like the Columbia Music Club back in like the day. That was how you got music.
Join for a penny.
Yeah, you're in for a penny, and you get like 12 discs, and you pick them all, and then they send you more, but then you got to pay like $5.99 or $4.99 or whatever it was.
Oh no, it was worse than that. It was like a penny for the first 12, and then it's like $20 for each additional, and you can't cancel. Like, you can't figure out how to cancel.
I don't remember it being that bad, but it could have been for some
it was definitely that bad, and I was like not old enough to realize what I was doing at the time. And so, you know, my parents would have to deal with it when I do it, and then I'd send it to grandma's house after the first time. You know, it was what it was.
Well, I remember running out of bands that I liked to pick from because they only had a small catalog. I mean, I don't know if they had a huge catalog, but I remember
if you pay attention to it, we don't think of buying music, but those are basically you're buying the music direct from the label. So Columbia had Columbia Music, you know, BMG would have Warner Music, because they were just selling the artists that they had that they represented. And so you'd have to be part of all of them to kind of get the full spectrum of the music that was out there. I would say in the 90s, probably the best one would have been Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers today still has some of the best indie artists.
Okay. Well, I just remember running out of the good ones and then still picking some crap, getting those crap CDs, and then getting some like indie cred for having those CDs, but I never listened to them because I hated them. I remember like a band called Firehose. I want to say I got that album, and they're like, "Oh, you listen to Firehose?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I totally listen to Firehose. You're cool." Never listened to Firehose. I listened to it one time, thought it was crap, but I never threw it away.
I'm imagining that he was actually listening to Firehouse.
I maybe it was. It was like some alternative band in the early 90s. I don't know.
All right. Well,
like the Melvins or something.
God, I wish there were Melvins.
Conflict resolution is my job.
Fucking ponytail. Few things are as disgusting to me as Tim Robbins with a ponytail.
I wish I still had mine, actually, for recording this episode.
I don't miss it.
Thank you. My girls like that I cut my hair.
I think probably one of the most cathartic scenes in that movie is where he has like the fake meeting of him, and then he like tells him to get his patchouli stink out of my fucking store, and then the one dude like grabs a telephone and smashes him in the jaw with a telephone, and he spits out his teeth.
And then Dick grabs the air conditioner out of the wall and drops it on his face.
Which is hysterical because Dick could never do that. He's such a little guy. And then he falls in love with the girl from Roseanne.
Yeah, I did appreciate that. I recognized her right away.
Now, Robert, this calls back a little bit to our previous episode with Jack V. Lloyd, where we talked about Edge of Tomorrow for our Groundhog Day episode. And, you know, the threat of alien invasion brought the world together into a one world government.
Yes, it did.
Similar situation here when
very similar.
Was a little psycho and started stalking Laura and Ian. I hate Ray.
Yeah. Ian. Right, ponytail.
Ian and Raymond.
And Joan points out to him, like, hey, if you keep up this crazy shit, you're going to form a little unit. You know, now they have a common enemy. Before it was just 3 people in a mess, and now you're forming this little team against you. I think that was pretty solid advice from her.
No, that is solid advice. Absolutely. Yeah, his craziness was giving them something to bond over. You don't want to do that when their relationship's on the edge. Not that he knew that, but
I think I'm seeing what's going on here is that maybe this hit just a little bit too close to home and our friend here hasn't reached the point of enlightenment that we have. You know, we're married with kids now. We
clearly
have our
true.
lives, and you know, he's still doing the bachelor artist
Absolutely.
thing. You know,
I'm a disaster, and I'm just looking at you enlightened beings and going, how can I pattern my life after these incredible entities?
these specimens of all that is man.
That's right. No. Absolutely.
See, Robert's still at the stage of being a little skate fuck and business crippling Nazi youth shoplifter.
That's right. Making incredible music. Suck it, bitches.
In fairness, I thought their music was kind of shitty, but that's not my kind of music either.
Do you know if there's a way to
Fucking
get
hater.
at least the one track that they sort of play in the background?
I'm pretty
'Cause
positive it's on the soundtrack, isn't it?
I looked for it and it wasn't on there. But I'd be curious to actually give it a listen.
I'll have to go and see if I can find that somewhere, because I'm pretty positive I had it somewhere as an MP3 in college. I might even have it in my collection still.
Okay, yeah, send it my way. I'd appreciate that. And I really like that Jack Black's line is like he hates those guys, and they're listening to it. He's like, but it's really fucking good, man. You know, like he reluctantly has to appreciate the quality of it.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some shit that I see artistically that, yeah, you know, while I'm like, God, this is terrible and I can't stand it. But man, if only I had the amount of like ability to pour into this. Like there's some really good music out there written by commies. We'll just say that.
I would agree with you there. I was a big fan of Rage Against the Machine back in the day, and now I'm like, oh, you know, you see their was it the Bulls on Parade one where they're doing the music on Wall Street and they got the Trump for president posters.
That's crazy.
Back in like 2000, 2001, something like that.
Yeah, that was with Michael Moore, right?
It might have been.
Yeah, they shut down Wall Street while they played outside, and then Michael Moore win and shut down Wall Street for a day or whatever, and he was super proud of himself.
God, I hate Michael Moore.
Pathetic rebound fuck. Another line from this.
I mean, but let's be clear. She clearly has shitty taste in men. Like Rob and him, neither one of them is really a catch. Is that possibly because of the man voice?
What do you mean the man voice?
I mean, she sounds like a dude when she talks.
Oh,
like
I
she has a deep, smoky voice.
Are we talking about the Zoe, what's her name? Kravitz lady?
No. She sounds sexy as fuck.
Who are we talking about?
We're talking about the Laura.
Which one's Laura?
Laura kind of talks like this a little bit. You know, what's up, guys?
Is this a character in the movie we're talking about?
Yeah, it's the girl. It's like the girl that like breaks up with him. She sounds like a dude.
Girl, the lawyer?
Hot. She sounds like a dude.
All right. I don't remember her sounding like a dude. All right.
She's got a pretty heavy like Scandinavian accent. So maybe that's what you're hearing.
Maybe Nikki's not into that.
Oh no, I married a woman with a dude voice. So.
Oh, okay. All right.
My wife's voice is very deep and smoky.
Well, when the lights are off.
Oh man.
Anything about her shoulders. Sonic fucking Death. Wait, so are you guys officially changing Kathleen Turner Overdrive to Sonic Death Monkey after this? Or are you going to go full on and do the full thing and it's now going to be downtown, was it Downtown Halley, Uptown 5, whatever it is there?
Oh, Barry Jive and the Uptown 5?
Yeah, Barry Jive and the Uptown 5, that's what it was.
Yeah, he was making the transition from Sonic Death Monkey to Kathleen Turner Overdrive, but for tonight, it'll be Barry Jive and the Uptown 5.
I love it.
Then he sings Let's Get It On, which this was the first time I heard Jack Black sing. I know that Tenacious D like predates this a bit.
This is the first time I heard it too. Funny story. I heard Tenacious D for the first time because I was talking about this movie in physics class in high school. And we had like a substitute teacher and he was a younger guy. Mr. Philbin or something like that. I can't remember, but he overheard me talking about the movie and how much I love Jack Black singing Let's Get It On. And he's like, well, if you like that, you should go look this up. And so I think I went home and like dug around on the internet until I found it. And I found, I found some clips or something. And then I had a friend of mine look for it and burn me a copy of that first Tenacious D record, which I was sent on the path by a fucking high school physics teacher.
Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah. I actually enjoyed his singing. Like when I think for me and probably for much of the audience, like I was as surprised as Rob Gordon with his actual, like being a good singer and actually entertaining for the audience in this. I mean, I know it's like, part of the plot and all, but
well, how much do you actually know about it? It technically isn't the first time I ever heard Jack Black sing, because there is a movie that I saw Tenacious D in many years before that it never registered to me that they were them, which is go and look up Biodome.
Oh,
and the Pauly Shore movie?
And Tenacious D is playing as Tenacious D out in like when all the hippies are hanging out outside on Earth Day and they're all having the big party out there. They're just walking around like singing. And it's him and KG as little tiny babies, man. Like they're so young in it, and it's hilarious. But it's something that you would never think about because it's so in the background to what's going on. Like you'll just get passes, like a screen passes by them. I don't even think it's 10 seconds of them in the movie. But like once you know that it's them, like you can't unknow it. You're like, oh my God, that's crazy.
Okay, all right. Now I will take it back a little bit. Earlier in the movie, he does sing a little bit like, brother, what a night it really was. Brother, what a night it really was. Angina's tough. and then Rob's like shaking him, and like, did Laura let you wear that out in the house today? This shit is vintage. I would sock you in the nose. Oh man, good stuff.
Well, but the thing is like Tenacious D. I don't know how much you know about them as a band, but I mean they're very, very talented musicians. A lot of people don't know. So Kyle, the guitar player for that band, like he studied guitar at Juilliard, so he's as classically trained at like one of the best schools in the country that you could possibly be trained at, and he makes silly movies. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Wild Hogs, and KG is actually the guy that's singing my milkshake, or don't you think your girlfriend was hot like me, or whatever.
Is that the Tommy Lee Jones and like Morgan Freeman, like Space Cowboys but on motorcycles?
I think wasn't it like
John Travolta and
yeah, John Travolta is what I think of.
Yeah, and Tim Allen.
Yes, those guys. And they're at the carnival, and he's like, he's just like it was in Biodome, where he's just this background thing that's happening, and you see this fat bald guy singing songs in a cowboy. I think he does Pony by Genuine is one of the ones that he does, and like he's just really, really going over the top with like the sexual nature of the song. But if you've never listened to KG sing, KG sings really, really high like this. Okay, guys. kind of like the joke version of Prince when you think of how Prince sings. Like you just imagine him having this high-pitched, squealy voice. Well, that's actually how KG sings.
I'm a long-time Tenacious D fan. Long time. I own the complete Masterworks. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I do own it.
I think the quality in the music has dropped off as of late, but I mean, I respect what they did. I love the Pick a Destiny, mostly because I see it the same way I see like Adam Sandler movie. It's just an excuse to hang out with their friends and get paid to do it. Like,
yeah, let's do some ridiculousness.
I don't know how far you could run with what they are, but the thing that I love about them, and they say it in this, at least in one documentary, is that the thing about Tenacious D that makes them beautiful is that they get you to buy in because you want for them so much what they want to be. Like they hear themselves as these giant rock gods, and you want that for them, and it's a pretty beautiful thing.
Yeah, I could see that. I think Tribute's one of the all-time great songs. I still listen to that on a regular basis.
I play it all the time on stage.
The best song in the world.
People see a fat guy with a guitar and they're like, "Play some Tenacious D." And then I chastise them for making a what do you call it? I will chastise them for making assumptions based on my way to play that I would play music like that, and then I play it because I'm a whore.
Why wouldn't you be
a musical whore for money?
When you see them throwing them 20s in the till, makes for a good night. I've played Nickelback. I've played Smash Mouth. I don't care. The price is right. We'll make it happen.
All right, you heard it here, folks. All right, well, we're getting to that point where you need to start winding down the show. So, are there any last notes, Nick, that you've got? I know, Robert, you're shooting blanks over there.
Oh no, I got shitload of notes, yo, man. Oh my god, you guys just aren't even talking about them all. I got this one where there's Lenny Kravitz's girl says sex is a basic human right. Just want to thank her for that. That's a true story. So, ladies, who's it going to be tonight? Come on,
I had that loaded up for some bonus content.
Bonus content! I ruined it.
No, we can talk about it now. We can talk about it now.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, so she says, that sex is a basic human right, and she won't let some asshole get in the way of her and a fuck or whatever. Well, yeah. But I guess it really depends on how she's referring to it as, like a basic human right. In the positive rights sense, which are illegitimate rights, but I think what most people would think of them as would be something that someone is obligated to provide to you. And I think that would be a problematic statement.
What?
In the perspective,
in my utopia, that's the way it's going to be, Daniel.
Well, and let's not argue that this isn't a male power fantasy film, because clearly it is. It's just basically a story about him dating hot women and not being, cool with when they eventually realize that he's a guy who just serially dates hot women and doesn't offer much at the table.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
The movie. So go ahead, Daniel. Continue. What were you saying?
Well, I'm just saying that the perspective of probably the lay audience and even the producers of said film, writers and or everyone involved would position that as a positive right thing, I would think. Like that's how they would view rights as, whereas we would view it as a negative right. So yes, you have the right to engage in said activity voluntarily with consent.
What? Boo.
But how it's presented in this, it seems maybe less than that. I don't know.
Well, I think that the way she's presenting it is actually in the way that most people throughout most of history have thought of rights, which is our things that you're not allowed to stop me from trying to attain artificially. Like she's not saying that people need to bring me sex, but stay the fuck out of my way if that's something I'm trying to get.
Okay. Yeah.
That seems like what she's doing in the film.
I think that we've just kind of grown up in this era that is really fucked with what we expect out of people.
Right. And she's not talking about like the legal sense of it. She's talking about like that she has a recent breakup and that's emotionally messing with her. And she's not going to let that stop her from having a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Daniel. Don't let it stop you from having a good time, buddy. You just do it, all right? As long as you have consent.
Throw that dick wherever you want to.
Yeah, just sling it out there.
I've been following my gut, and it turns out my guts have
shipper brain.
So, Robert.
Oh yeah, Daniel, what's up?
Why don't you lead us off with your?
I'm clearly the ignorant guy in this trio. I'm like
summary and review.
I'm the Ringo of this quartet. I enjoyed this film. I like Cusack. He's a charming guy. I thought the script was pretty well written. I enjoyed Black. He really, like was said in this podcast, he is the most himself outside of School of Rock, which was written specifically for him. But as to Nick's point, it did seem like they just kind of said, just do your thing, just be you, and we'll just hit record on the camera. As far as a plot, I know you guys seem to think this is like some masterpiece of psychology and human behavior or something like that. I'm not there. I'm not there with you guys. I'm all for development of characters, And to have a character realize that they've been a piece of shit the whole time and to grow in that way is pretty cool. To realize that they've been the bad guy the whole time or whatever. I like the concept, but I don't buy the execution. I don't buy the execution in this film. I don't see that, you know, he's talking to a few exes and then he realizes he has this huge revelation and, oh, now I'm going to be a good person now. I don't buy it. It's too big of a change to happen in 90 minutes. But, you know, it's a movie. And if you buy it, I think you'll enjoy it. I still think it's a perfectly fine movie. I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10.
6.5, huh? Well, Robert, you're a cinematic idiot, and I feel sorry for you. This is a brilliant
Proud
film.
Idiot. Proud.
Akin to Evil Dead 2, though completely different genre. But this is a film that I think I said in the open, or perhaps it was our pre-show content available for Patreon supporters at lastnighters.com/Patreon, that I grew up, well, you know, my formative years watching fairly often, to the point where I could quote a fair amount of it. I really enjoyed the John Cusack character. I think he played it very well. Jack Black, of course, was the standout. I think that it is a bit of a journey, and as Nick said, we have a flawed character, but he does kind of develop. And I think I keep going back to, you know, it's his perspective changes. His perspective changes on his past relationships. His perspective changes on his current relationships. And I actually think that the turn is really when he and Laura are back together. And no, it's before they're back together, actually. She comes into his house and sees the top 5 jobs, dream jobs that he has listed. And some of them are like being a producer for Atlantic Records in 1968 to 1973. You get to meet Janis Joplin and, you know, Led Zeppelin and all this shit. And he gets down to like the last one, and you know, none of them are actually possible because they, you know, have to do with time and other people being dead and all this stuff. So wouldn't you just change this last one, you know, top 5 job, record store owner? And that's the realization where he actually has to appreciate that his life is pretty good. Like, this is something that we try to instill in our girls, is like, hey, just so you're aware, your life is really good. Like, I'm not one to like talk about privilege in this, you know, you have privilege and you're a terrible person because you don't, you know, understand it or whatever. But our girls don't know what hardship is really, like, especially with the modern conveniences of Amazon and Costco and the internet, and that I can work from home and that we make enough money and all this stuff. But, you know, I also need to realize that I have it pretty good. You know, when I think I'm having a hard day, I have to realize how good I really have it. And I think that's the turning point for Rob in this movie, is that he realizes that he actually does have the dream job, and he does have a girl who he does want to be with, who makes him feel pretty good most of the time, you know, with that stability. So it is the kind of this maturation process that we see. And there's, you know, other fun moments in this, quotable stuff, good music. I actually enjoyed the Kinky Wizards, the little Nazi youth shoplifters, business cripplers. So overall, it's a good film, and I'm going to go with a 7.5.
Yeah, well, I think I liked this movie the better the first time I saw it, when it was called It's a Wonderful Life. So suck it, Daniel.
All right, and Nick, are you with us? We're ready for your final summary and review. Perhaps you had to go take a break.
So, Daniel, did you give it a dollar value? I know all value is subjective, but you have to give it a point, 1 decimal deep.
A dollar value? I did. I said 7.5.
Oh, 7.5. I wasn't even listening. I was just waiting for my turn to talk.
So apparently Robert thinks that people only have growth over large periods of time.
Yeah, watch It's a Wonderful Life. It's a better movie. Don't watch this crap.
It's not like Dave Smith didn't go from being an atheist to a conservative Christian over one moment.
It was one moment. It's when he had his daughter.
Yeah, so, you know, go tell me life changes don't happen in moments, that you need to have huge periods of time. Technically, this is even more realistic than that.
You still have to have time to reflect on it.
I think you're assuming how people have to be.
That's right. According to my world, in my utopia.
He wants everyone to change slow as molasses.
All right, Nikki, you tell us what's your rating, sir?
I'm giving it, I'm going to say an 8. I've definitely seen better movies. It tickles a lot of my fancies, but not all of them.
All right. Anything else to your final summary? Like, what are the top 5 reasons you picked this film? Use that as your summary.
Because I wouldn't have to watch it and could probably riff for days on it if I needed to. Strictly a laziness thing. And if I could, I was going to come on here and just tell everyone to go and watch War Inc., a far more thought-provoking movie about politics back when he had decent politics, because Bush was in office.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Well, perhaps that can be a film that we do on the next appearance of Nicky P of Sound Freaks.
I'm just the guy that comes on when we do John Cusack movies, apparently.
Maybe our John Cusack guy. We got a Batman guy. We got a Kevin Costner guy. We got a 80s rom-com lady. It's all good stuff. We got a little niches, Riches are in the niches, and we're still waiting on them riches. Speaking of riches, if you like what we do here, one of the top 5 ways you can help us out is to go to our Patreon page at lastnerds.com/Patreon, throw a few shekels our way, and we'll give you some bonus content and also get some warm fuzzies from your monetary approval of what we do here. Robert, give us the balance of that list, the 4 more ways that they can support us.
Yeah, top 4 more ways. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe to us on our YouTube channel and leave a like, leave a comment down in the comment box. Get the conversation going. That'd be fantastic. Or buy a shirt on trupster.com. There's all kinds of different ways you could support us. And don't let me limit you. Your list might be different. Your ordinal list might have a different one at the number 1. So you could just go ahead and do that one, whatever you're thinking.
All right, very good. And you can also check us out on the Launchpad Media, where they're always launching new ideas in your direction. You can also find Nicky P stuff over there, as well as at nickpicone.com. His latest is Peace Freqs and Parent to Podcaster. And I will be making an appearance on that show, I think, coming right up. So we'll have a link to that on our show notes page at lastnerds.com/110. And this has been our episode on High Fidelity. And we will say good night from last night, everyone.